Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Uh, Today, on behalf of Suprovat Sydney, Bangladeshi community newspaper published from Sydney, Australia, we are meeting here a famous and renowned religious scholar of Australia, Sheikh Shady Alsuleiman. So, Suprovat Sydney, we organize face-to-face live occasionally to introduce people who have great contribution to the society and the community to our readers. So regarding Sheikh Shady Alsuleiman, he has been organizing many organizations and Islamic activities in Australia. Without further discussion, we'll listen about him from him. Sheikh Shady, would you please tell us about yourself and your background, your religious education, your life, how you started?
Jazakallah khair. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam wa rasulullah. So my name is Shady Alsuleiman. Ana Shady in Urdu means marriage, but in Arabic doesn't mean marriage. Shady in Arabic means a very hard studying student, or also a singing bird. I'm originally from a Palestinian Arab family that migrated to Australia about 50 years ago. I was born and raised in Australia. I went to local schools here. In '94, I went to Pakistan for 2 years. I memorized the Quran al-Kareem. Straight after that, I went to Syria, Damascus. And I was in Damascus for 6 years, where I acquired religious studies, Arabic studies and Islamic studies. I came back to Australia in 2001, or late 2001, and then I started to work in the Da'wah, trying to engage with the second and third generation who are born and raised in Australia. I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving me the opportunity to memorize the Quran al-Kareem, to learn a bit of Islam, the Quran and Hadith, and understand my deen better. And I thank Allah Azza wa Jal for giving me the opportunity to work in the Da'wah and serve my religion and serve my community.
MashaAllah. That's great. And could you tell us a little bit about your organizations? Which organizations you are working now, and what are the main activities? What are the contributions for Muslims in Australia?
Well, I'm one of the founding members of the UMA, which is the United Muslims of Australia. It's an organization that myself and other sincere brothers had founded about 18 years ago, or just under 18 years ago, when I first came back from overseas, and we established the United Muslims of Australia, UMA, for the purpose of servicing and providing services and programs for those who are born and raised in Australia. In the past, there was a lot of focus on the first generation, and even when the first generation wanted to focus on the second generation, there was that gap. But given that we are from the country we're born and raised in, we are trying to facilitate for those who are born and raised in. So the UMA is a centre that's based in Pakistan. It first started in Lakemba, and the purpose of the UMA is establish a one-stop Islamic centre where people can come to this centre. They could pray, they could play, they could eat, they could drink, they could hang out, and have a safe environment for them to be at and for them to stay in. So alhamdulillah, right now we are based and located in Padstow. We have a big centre, alhamdulillah. As you could see, there's a prayer hall, there's a basketball hall, and a multi-purpose function and recreation facility. We have a gym, we have a canteen, we have a lecture hall, we have classrooms, we have offices, we have a boardroom, we have a boxing gym, we have a youth area, and alhamdulillah, more to come. So the UMA is a da'wah organisation, a grassroots organisation that focuses on those who are born and raised in Australia. And as we speak, now we're talking about fourth generation that's born and raised in Australia, from parents who are born and raised in Australia, from grandparents who are born and raised in Australia. So the demographics of the Muslim community had changed a lot, and there has been a huge shift. So that's one organisation that I chair. I'm also one of the founding members and the current president of the Australian National Imams Council, which is the peak Muslim body that represents the imams and the Muslim community here in Australia. Alhamdulillah, I was blessed to be a part of a wonderful team of imams who work together in providing religious and spiritual service to the Muslim community. We established the Australian National Imams Council in 2006. Currently, as we speak, we have about 200 imams from all around Australia. And we have a permanent office here in Sydney, another permanent office in Melbourne. And alhamdulillah, the Australian National Imams Council has state Imams Council. So we've got the Council of Imams New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Western Australia, Queensland and ACT. And then we've got associate members who are coming from Darwin, Christmas Island and Tasmania. I'm the chairman as we speak. This is my second term, and alhamdulillah, I'm blessed to serve the imams. And I have to say, the Australian National Imams Council is a great example for many Muslims who are living in the West, and the unity of the Australian imams is second to none.
So we can say that it's a it's a fruitful organization.
Alhamdulillah, inshallah, very effective on the ground and representative, very representative.
So we'll make today's discussion very precise, inshallah, and beneficial for our viewers. As a religious scholar, there is an opinion we hear a lot that some people say that a Muslim should not reside in a Muslim minority country. It contradicts Iman or proper practice of religion. On the other hand, many religious scholars say that there are precedents, examples in the life of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So how do you reconcile between these two opposing views, and how do you explain this to our viewers who are mostly Muslims and living in a country, secular country?
Okay, so number one, we can respond to this that during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's him alayhi salatu wasallam who sent the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum from Mecca to Abyssinia and to live under the ruling of a kafir, a disbeliever. So Abyssinia, the ruler of Abyssinia back then, who's known as Negus, he wasn't a Muslim, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the Sahaba to go and live under his kingdom, under his empire and under his rule. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ even mentioned him to be a just king. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was also in Mecca, and the people of Quraysh were non-Muslims. Yes, someone might argue and say that was before the Hijrah, that was before the conquest of Mecca, but then you still have a lot more examples of Muslims who lived in the East and the West as minority people in a non-Muslim country. Now, going back to the other thing, okay, when people say, okay, a Muslim country, are we talking about a Muslim country that practices Islam, or talking about a Muslim country that has Muslims? Because there are a lot of Muslim countries out there that don't practice Islam. If you want to really look at Australia, Australia is a non-Muslim country, but it does have a lot of Islamic values embedded in it. When we talk about integrity, when we talk about honesty, when we talk about fair go, when we talk about fairness and justice, we find more of those values in non-Muslim countries than a Muslim country. Now, at the end of the day, this is a big discussion that people had in the past, but we go back to the point that I mentioned before. You have a huge number of Muslims who are born and raised in Australia. It wasn't even their choice for them to migrate here, and they have no other home except Australia. So our responsibility, rather than us debating this topic, whether you're allowed to stay in a Muslim country, non-Muslim country, Kafir country, non-Kafir country, East, West, and that, let's focus on what we can contribute towards those communities and the da'wah that we can fulfill in such country like Australia, for example. We as a Muslim community, we've been here from the very beginning of Australia. Muslims have been here before the European settlement. So it's important for us to focus on an objective rather than just debating the topics and debating the issues.
Nice. We agree. Hopefully our viewers will understand it with this nice explanation. Inshallah. So you work with the Muslim community in different places and cities in Australia. You have an understanding of how those communities from different cultural backgrounds, they're residing here, working here, integrating and living. How do you see the progress of Muslim community based on religious identity, irrespective of cultural or language background? How do you see that they are doing here in Australia? Are they moving forward, or are they in a stagnant situation intellectually? What's your personal opinion when you view our Muslim community as a whole?
So, alhamdulillah, the Australian Muslim community in particular is a vibrant community, an active community, an understanding community, an open-minded community. And the Australian Muslim community has been part of the Australian fabric for many years, we could say even for many centuries. And without a doubt, alhamdulillah, the Australian people and Australia in general are accommodating people. So we as Muslims, we are free to practice our religion. However, and having said this, is that the Islamic identity is at stake, is under threat, whether in a Western country or even Muslim countries. And it's very important for us to preserve the Islamic identity. And subhanAllah, we go back to the hadith of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that says that I had left two things amongst you. If you hold on to them, you never ever go astray. That's the book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. We need to hold on to the traditional teachings of Islam. We need to hold onto the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, follow the path of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and work together as a collective community. Collectively, we become strong. And the more united we are, the stronger we become in preserving this identity. Because the reality is religion as a whole is at stake. And Islam in particular is at stake. So it's important for us to preserve our religious and Islamic identity, whether we are Muslims living in the West or Muslims living in Muslim countries. And I do believe there is that push of trying to give a different face to Islam. A face which is more progressive in one way or another, away from the traditional teachings of Islam. And that's something that we need to keep in mind, that we need to be vigilant of. And that's why we as imams, we as community leaders, we as du'at, it's our responsibility to continue advocating the right message and not to fall into the two extremes. An extreme that wants to kill everyone, and an extreme that's halal of everything. So we have to be balanced, and that's what Islam is about, which is moderation.
Nice. Shukran. We'll move our discussion a little bit towards a social issue. It's very common in many countries around the world that we see a disconnect between generations of immigrant families. The first generations, their habit, their language, their culture, it differs to a great extent with their sons and daughters, the second generation. And the more people are staying and the family is extending, those gaps are expanding. So how do you see that younger Muslim generations who are living in Australia? Australia is their country, and at the same time they are dealing with their parents every day at home, who have different cultural mindset and worldview. Is this a healthy and good situation in the Muslim societies in this regard, or there are troubles and problems?
The reality is, and it's by default between every generation and the following generation, so between the predecessors and the successors, there's always a gap. But unfortunately, the gap between those who came from overseas in Australia, the migrants, and their children who are born and raised in Australia, the gap is a lot more wider, it's a lot more bigger. And because you're talking about two different cultures, two different mindsets, two different upbringing. So yes, we do have generational gap. We do have generational gap. And Islam is a very resilient religion and a very flexible religion. And that's why Islam comes and focuses on the principles, not on the culture. Not what you had inherited from your parents or what I inherited from my parents or what you inherited from your culture or anyone else. Islam focuses on the core values and principles of the Sharia. And that's why you find that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did embed in the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum core principles that no matter where you live, during any time and era, you can live with those core principles. Those principles of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which are based on respect, integrity, honesty, trustworthiness, and respecting other people, to the extent the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said to respect Muslims, non-Muslims, any human being, animals, environment, everything. So Islam is a very fundamental religion that's based on concrete and solid principles that you can live by Islam during any time, any place, any era.
So how the newer generation, younger generation, they're doing here in Australia? Do you see that they have an overall positive situation? Or?
Overall, yes, there is positivity, and I could see that within the second and third generation, the new generation that's born and raised here. Overall, there is a sense of optimism, but it goes back to the parents first and foremost. Parents are responsible for their children and for them to preserve their Islamic identity, and the Muslim community itself as a whole. We as imams and community leaders, centers, masajid, we need to provide those facilities, and that's why here at the UMA we moved away from the traditional establishment of mosques into establishing a center that, as a youth or someone who's born and raised here, Not necessarily they'll be coming here just to pray, but they could pray and play and eat and drink and learn and do everything else. And that's one of the things that I see to be very important for us to shift and for us to move away from just establishing mosques as we had in our countries, back home in Muslim countries, because the mosque is only one thing out of many other things that help you to be a good Muslim. But here in Australia, it's only the mosque or the center that's helping you to be a good Muslim. So we need to have an inclusive environment that can provide all the different services and programs and needs of the Muslim community.
That's true. We can attest to our viewers that in here Padstow UMS Center, we have seen that the organization is trying to provide not only a mosque, they are providing an an environment for people who are coming here. That's a great contribution. We pray and hope for its success. We will move to a topic which is a bit controversial, which could be not easy to address, but we face those questions from many of our viewers, especially the members of Bangladeshi community. And I would request Honorable Sheikh, if you can clarify as much as you can, and of course we know that you will address this issue with honesty. So I hope that our viewers will get benefited from this discussion today. That the thing is, in we see that the immigrants, they fear the political activities of the country they live in mostly, and sometimes we don't understand the political philosophies and the activities and the objectives of those political parties. Sometimes we support a political party just because our friends are supporting that or our whole community is supporting that. So in Australia and in most Western countries, political philosophies are political parties are mostly divided into two philosophies, conservative and liberal. So in Australian context, how do you prefer the Muslim communities that they can contribute in local and national politics? Not which party, what type of activities they can support, what they can do to increase their effective political contribution in this country so that they can be in a better situation as better citizens.
In the past, there has been that call in which we need to separate politics from religion. And some people toe that line. Some people support this rhetoric that we separate politics from religion. But in reality, when you really look at it, Islam is politics. When I say politics, I know when you say the word politics, it carries this negative connotation of disloyalty, dishonesty, untrustworthiness. Yes, unfortunately, these days we live and rarely for you to find a genuine politician. But that doesn't mean that all politics is bad. And Islam is politics. When I say Islam, Islam is a religion, but politics is part of Islam. And when you look in the character of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he was the best statesman. The Nabi ﷺ was the best statesman. I'm not talking about politics in which Islam is calling for political parties and this and that. When I say politics, we're talking about the politics of engaging with others. And that's what I refer to Islam as politics, in engaging with others and dealing with others. This is the part that I'm trying to refer to. So I don't want my words to be taken out of context that I'm saying Islam is a political religion. No, it's not Islam is a religion, but politics is also a part of it, because Islam is a comprehensive religion that includes everything. How to live with yourself, how to live with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how to live with your family, how to live with the Muslims, how to live with the non-Muslims, how to live with the animals, how to live with the environment, how to live with everything in this world and the hereafter. And that's part of also engaging in the political spectrum. So we as Muslims, we need to be politically active. We can't just sit on the sideline and just wait for decisions to be made on us. I don't believe in that concept. I don't agree with it either. And those that continue to talk about it's a conspiracy against Islam, well, it's also part of the conspiracy for you to stand on the sideline and do nothing. We as Muslims, especially in Australia, we have the opportunity and we have the leeway or the flexibility for us to be politically active like everyone else. It's our right. And I do encourage Muslims to be politically active, raise your concerns. Now, obviously, You're not going to get 100%, and it doesn't exist that you're going to have a political party that's going to be 100% in line with your Islamic views. That doesn't exist, but at least something better than nothing. So we as Muslims, we need to be more politically active, and the Australian Muslim community is becoming more politically active, and we're becoming a lot more educated. And that's one of the things that I do encourage people to be more politically active, because Islam is about being active and bringing goodness upon everything and everyone. And the Prophet Muhammad SAW says the best of people are those who bring goodness to others and prevent harm from others. So we as Muslims in our political engagement, we can bring goodness. Maybe it's not 100% goodness, but 50% goodness is better than none. Okay, and prevent the harm. So be politically active as a Muslim. And alhamdulillah, Islam is a beautiful religion, it's a comprehensive religion, and part of it is being engaged or engaging in the political domain.
Social and political issues.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So when a Muslim person is going to consider his political contribution in this society, what are the issues and things you advise that they should look into, consider that these issues they will consider whether it exists or not exist in those activities.
So there are general issues that we have in common with everyone else, with the mainstream Australians, like when we talk about health and education and many other things, infrastructure. But also we as Muslims, we have issues that concern us as Muslims. Like, you know, when we talk about vilification on religious grounds, that's something that concerns us as Muslims. When we talk about immigration, we talk about foreign issues like Palestine and Rohingya and East Turkestan, you know, China and all that. So there are issues that concern us as Muslims that we need to advocate and be politically active in. Otherwise, the other side will be politically active against you. So we need to be more politically active.
We hope that our viewers will get this advice,
Inshallah.
and hopefully will get inspiration from that. So we are almost at the end of our discussion. Thank you very much for your valuable time and contribution. Before we conclude our face-to-face Suprovat Sydney face-to-face live program today, do you have any general advice for Bangladeshi community living in Sydney, Melbourne, and other Australian countries? Of course, you have been watching different communities very closely, and you have an understanding that how they are moving forward. Particularly for the members of Bangladeshi community, male, female members, and children growing up here, far from their own country. Bangladeshi, we are known for emotion. Many people say that we are emotional. We miss our country so much. At the same time, we are living here in Australia, and we are watching our children growing up completely different people than we thought. It's the effect of migrant life.
Yeah.
In this situation, Islam gives us a very strong hope that it will preserve the goodness among our children, our future generation. So considering all this situation, our living, our activities here, and based on your observation, would you please give us general advice for our...
I work closely with the Bangladeshi Muslim community here in Australia, and I find them to be, mashallah, very active. They are emotional and they love their politics. I've picked up on that one. And also they love their sweets too. Mashallah, the Bangladeshi Muslim community is an active community, is a fast growing community here in Australia, well educated. One of the advices that I would give to our Bangladeshi Muslim brothers, which is a general advice, I think sometimes we need to accept the reality that we are living in Australia and focus on a good Muslim living in Australia. Sometimes we bring some of the cultural backgrounds that we bring with us. Some of it is good, some of it is not bad, but it's irrelevant. Okay, I can't say it's bad, but it's irrelevant. Something to do with overseas, and sometimes try and force it on our kids, which becomes counterproductive. So let us focus on how can I see my son grow up as a good Muslim in this society. Okay, because sometimes I look at it, I want my son to grow up as a good Arab in this society, but I live in Australia. I want my son to grow up as a good Indian in this society, and I live in Australia. I want my son to grow up as a good Bangladeshi. No, I want my son to grow up as a good Muslim in this society. This is the beauty of Islam. This is the greatness of Islam, that it focuses on the principles and the values, not on the culture and the race and ethnicity. So, alhamdulillah, I'm very proud of the Bangladeshi Muslim community in Australia. MashaAllah, they're very active, well educated. They are very passionate over their deen. And inshallah, there's a lot that they can contribute towards society. And inshallah, it's just about moving forward. And obviously, one more thing that I'll advise myself and everyone else, the unity. Always look at the bigger picture. Sometimes we break up and we disunite over little issues and we forget about the bigger issues. So let's focus on the bigger issues and not focus on the small issues. Let's look at the bigger picture and not at the small picture, and see how can we identify ways in us to work together, move forward together as a community, and obviously work with other people. So I'm working with you because you're not a Bangladeshi, you're not sitting down with me because I'm Palestinian. I'm working with you because you're a Muslim, and you're working with me because I'm Muslim. When we need to work with every single brother, the brothers who come from Africa or Asia or Europe or anywhere else, those are white, black, brown, we work with every single one of them on the common grounds that we can share. And not only Muslims, even with non-Muslims, if there are non-Muslims that we can share common issues and denominators, we'll work with them on. And that's exactly what the Prophet Muhammad taught us. If you look into the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad, the Nabi worked with non-Muslims on common issues that he and them had agreed on. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve us as a Muslim ummah, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us steadfast. Ameen.
Thank you very much, Sheikh, for joining Suprovat Sydney Face2Face Live. Thanks.